and thought this team, even when they have a million injuries and are having to play a quarterback in off the street, is still competitive as all get out. And they're just a piece or two away. His words, not mine. Welcome into the Hot Read Podcast. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, director of published content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network. And you can follow me on Twitter at Easton Freeze. I'm joined as always by producer JT, who you can follow at JT_Runke on Twitter, or X, as they're calling it these days, apparently. JT, how are you? And out at the gate, D-Good in the comments asking, JT, Mets versus Yankees, what are we betting tonight over on our sponsor, Zen Sportsbook?
It's going to be the Mets, Mets
minus
105.
Yeah.
It is I just checked the lines. Mets favored slightly, minus 105 tonight in the second round of the Subway Series. It's going to be a Verlander masterclass Mets legacy game here, as he might be gone at the trade deadline. This will be the Mets Verlander
or does he
Mets
just lay
game
down and die like a dog?
I don't know. Well,
Okay.
You know what? I believe that it's going to be the former, not the latter. So I will be taking the Mets tonight.
Well, you know what? Whichever side of the argument you are on, go over to our sponsor, our partner, Zen Sportsbook. If you're a resident here in Tennessee, use our code HOTPOD, HOTPOD, to sign up and get 5% welcome bonus cash back in your pocket. Shout out D-Good for the easy little segue into a plug there. And welcome in, everybody. Our first show of, in my opinion, there's not really a demarcation, but this is, in my opinion, the first show of the 2023 NFL season. We are so back, baby. We are so back. We're back. And it feels great. At the Titans facility today, I was there for Mike Vrabel and DeAndre Hopkins interviews with us, our kind of State of the Union, welcome back press conference. That's what the point of Mike Vrabel's conference was, just to recap the past 6 or 7 weeks where everybody's been off on vacation, talk about camp that we're about to embark on for the next 5 or so weeks, what his plans are. And we got into a number of different interesting topics, some things that we've kind of spent the last 6 weeks storing up like a squirrel with nuts in the winter, except us in the dog days, the valley of the shadow of death of NFL content the past couple weeks. Just absolute nothingness. The little morsels of things we had to ask about question-wise from Mike Vrabel, we threw it all at him today, and he gave us a lot of answers. So we're going to talk about all of that. We've got a number of clips to share from the press conference, and we'll get into detail on that in today's episode. And then our first conversation with DeAndre Hopkins, Titans' newest addition and star wide receiver. He spoke to us for about 20 minutes today. Nice guy, had a lot to say, and answered a couple of questions, of which we have clips for, and we'll talk about some of his answers as well. Thank you to all of you that are joining us live today. If you are listening via podcast, just so you know, we'll be going live a lot more now that the season is officially here, really, especially with training camp days. There'll be many days like today where in the afternoon, following a big practice or a big press conference or a big interview, we'll be going live on the show, recording for the next day's podcast. So this is the Wednesday, July 26th podcast, but you're joining us live now if you're listening to the sound of my voice on Tuesday, and we appreciate you being here. And that allows you to ask us any questions that you might have. Ask me any questions about what I saw and heard at camp. Make any comments, some observations of your own. Embrace debate, embrace discussion. That's what we like to do on this show. And so if you want to indulge in any of that, you have to go on over to Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. Just search Broadway Sports Media on YouTube, and you will find this live stream where you may be listening right now on Twitter or on Facebook, and we thank you for that. But if you want to comment so that we can see it on our end, like Jacob Sane just commented saying, this is a comment, you got to do that over on Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. So thank you very much to those tuning in. And without further ado, JT, how about we go ahead and dive on in to what we heard today from Mike Vrabel. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm ready to get into it because we have a lot to talk about.
We do. I pulled a number of clips. We spoke to Vrabel and Hopkins collectively today for about 50 minutes. And if you want to hear all of the clips that I had from today's show, or from today's press conference, some of which we won't be playing on today's show, go over to my Twitter account at Easton Freeze. You can find all of them there if you want to just listen to really the press conference in its entirety. But off the top, I wanted to talk about the first thing we asked head coach Mike Vrabel about, the obvious question. Mike, you've added, since we last spoke, a pretty significant piece in DeAndre Hopkins. What were your thoughts on him as a player, as a prospect you considered to bring in, ultimately did sign to a pretty significant deal for a 30-year-old receiver? And here's what he had to say. JT, let's play that clip.
Well, obviously, it's a proven player. It's a proven player that's had production year after year. The veteran presence that's seen a lot of different defenses. He's got experience in our offense. Some of the system is going to have changed a little bit, but I would say that he's got some familiarity with it. Some familiarity with me, with Timmy, and some of our coaches. So I'm going to ask him to do the same thing that we ask everybody else to do, which is to come in, be attentive, work hard, help the team in multiple ways. And I'm confident he'll do that. I would tell you this, that when we signed him, he mentioned that he wanted to communicate that he had prior engagement that he'll be taken care of here in the next couple of days. So I would say that there may be a day or two that he won't be here, not to alarm anybody, but appreciate him letting us know that on the onset, and when we signed him. So we do that with all of our players that communicate that things that come up.
So first of all, I do appreciate Vrabel getting that out there in the open out of the gate, because you just know people will be flipping out if in the first week or two of DeAndre Hopkins joining the team for training camp, he's mysteriously disappeared for a couple of days. Appreciate him making a pre-planned arrangement that he didn't go into detail on, but some family activities he's got to deal with for a couple of days in the next week or two. And so when he's missing, that's why. So no reason for everybody to freak out, lose their mind. He also was asked, Vrabel, about what Hopkins can do right now, what the plan is for him in terms of getting him fitted into the team, finding his role, getting up to speed with the install and the new offense and all of these things, and what his fit will be. And Vrabel gave a pretty lengthy answer, essentially saying that he feels like DeAndre can do a number of things right now out of the gate for the team, just because he's a veteran and a pro's pro and a potential future Hall of Famer. Actually, not potential, just a future Hall of Famer. And this is a guy that is going to take some time. He didn't say in particular who, but in my opinion, he was alluding to Hopkins as well as a handful of other receivers. He doesn't feel like out of the gate every receiver on this team will be able to play every position. And that was kind of along those lines of positionless ball that this team is ultimately trying to get to as an end goal with this new Tim Kelly offense. How positionless can we be? How well-versed can these players be at different positions? And DeAndre Hopkins, just in terms of historically how he's played on the field, has been somebody that you could pretty effectively move inside, outside, make him the Y, make him the flanker. He's been in the backfield a handful of times. He's got a couple carries in his career, especially when he was younger. So these are all things that he has done before that I'm sure they'll look to utilize with him in a way that, we were talking about this when they acquired him, JT. The top three receivers in terms of volume on this team, assuming health, should be Treylon Burks, DeAndre Hopkins, and Kyle Phillips. But in terms of who the three starters will be, who the three will be on the field in a standard package, don't be shocked if you see more of Burks as the X, the outside boundary receiver, NWI as the other big-bodied outside Y, the flanker, and then DeAndre in at the Z as that slot inline receiver, playing a little bit more of a slot role that we saw him play a bit more of when he was under Tim Kelly's, not tutelage, but direction in 2019 with the Texans, something that we'll have him address with a clip in a little bit. So all of that, I think, is in the cards. It just won't necessarily be happening right this minute. And I appreciate, by the way, all of you in the comments. Dr. Lipschitz, baby mama drama, we see you. I see your comments. We have all of these things you're addressing in the rundown. So we've got your comments starred. We're going to circle back to what you have to say in just a moment if you'll be patient with us. I appreciate that. And by the way, while I'm on the topic, if you are listening live, do me one quick personal favor. Like, share, retweet, send the link to a friend or some family. I would consider it a huge favor to me, and it's very helpful in terms of getting people in here so we can talk ball and get as many eyeballs on our show as possible. So if you could take 2 seconds to do that, be much appreciated. Likes, retweets, all of that good stuff, very helpful. So next, he was asked about DeAndre's physical shape, getting up to speed, the positionless ball topic. And I'm not going to play that clip because it's kind of redundant. But yeah, Jacob, re-exit, don't retweet it. It's Rexit now, I suppose. He seems to be in physical shape, ready to go. The next clip that I want to play is off the topic of DeAndre for the moment. We then asked him about probably the second most obvious question that we're looking to have answered right now. Hey, Mike, what's the plan at right tackle, right? Like what are we doing here? There's a number of ways they can go about this. JT, you and I have spent the past couple weeks trying to hypothetically build this puzzle as many different ways as we can. And boy, are there a number of ways they could go about it. Very few of them inspire much confidence, but there are a lot of ways to put that puzzle together. And so here in this clip was Mike Vrabel responding to the question, what is the plan at right tackle?
Well, Jamarco's worked over there the first couple days. The early report guys. I think Andrew Rupchik will play over there. I think Jalen will have a shot over there. I think OJ will have a chance over there, John. And so, we'll kind of see where things go, and we'll find the best person there.
One of the other members of the media asked that question, and Vrabel gives the obvious answer, the three players that we had been mentioning, and then one that I had just kind of been writing him off because he's been with the team for a little bit. He's more of a veteran player. I feel like there's not as much upside, but in terms of a plug-and-play Band-Aid type player in this situation, clearly the team is interested in giving him a shot, and that's Andrew Rupchik, a depth tackle on this roster that was the first name that Vrabel mentioned when asked about what the plan is at right tackle. And he seems to be of the mind that they're going to kind of have to just play around with it right now, right? The situation with the tackle position is one that doesn't have a clear answer on this roster. And it's something that we're going to have to just see as camp goes, what works, what doesn't. So he mentions Andrew Rupchik, John Ujokwu, the undrafted free agent rookie, Jalen Duncan, the sixth round tackle pick of this past draft, and then Jamarco Jones, who was a trade made by John Robinson from Seattle last year and hasn't really done a whole lot. But Vrabel did mention that in these first couple of days with the early guys, the rookies and lesser experienced players, depth players coming in and practicing a couple of days, it's been Jamarco Jones filling in at right tackle so far. So he's going to give those guys a chance. One of the other members of the media asked as a follow-up to this question, do you envision potentially trying Peter Skoronski out at right tackle? Obviously played tackle all through college, rookie 11th round selection in this past year's draft, a stud lineman, but much made about his ability to play tackle in the NFL considering his length. And he never really played right tackle in college, unless I'm completely misremembering that, JT. Didn't he play exclusively left?
He did.
Yeah. And
that was his bread and butter. And I mean, that's been the talk the entire time, is he plays either on the left side, and that's where he's really kind of considered home.
And it's not crazy for some to consider, well, why not try him at the right side? And trying him may not be a bad idea. Vrabel essentially said, I'm not crazy about moving him. I then followed up to that question. Okay, what about Brunskill? Daniel Brunskill, the guy currently penciled in at right guard. He has NFL experience at the right tackle position. Is he kind of in that same boat, Mike? Are you not wanting to, at least as your first resort, look to move one of them to the right tackle position in the interim? And he was just saying that he kind of likes where they're at right now, and that they're certainly not, he's not going to get too ahead of it, is what he said. He doesn't want to rule it out because they are going to try some things, but as their first plan of attack as to how they're going to fix this problem, it's going to be trying one of those four in Jones, Duncan, Ujokwu, or Rupchik, and seeing if they feel serviceable there so that they can leave Brunskill and Skoronski at the positions they ultimately want them to be playing. And once MPF comes back, where they will be. We asked him about George Fant and the workout this past weekend, he didn't really have much to say, just said that he came in for a workout. We didn't reach a deal. We're on good terms, staying in contact, blah, 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 all the stuff we'd heard reported. But then, JT, I'm sure you saw this, got kind of weird on Twitter right after the press conference when the Titans official photography team, Donald Page over there, who does great work with the Titans in the photography department, put up a number of pictures on the Titans official website, on their Facebook page, on their Instagram, and all of these things, pictures of guys arriving today from the parking garage, the pictures of like first day back, let's go, get hype. And amongst them was George Fant walking in from his car, throwing up a peace sign at the camera. And it's captioned, George Fant arrives at the Titans facility for the first day of fall camp. And this was like 30 minutes after we finished our press conference and many of us packed up and left the facility. Very strange. And then George Fant himself responds to a number of people that tweeted this out saying, what's the deal here? What's going on? We just heard Vrabel say that he's not with the team. He's not been signed and blah, blah, blah. Like it's a non-story. Then we see this picture. George Fant replies on Twitter to these pictures and says, no, I went to the wrong door. Whatever that means. That doesn't really clear it up at all at the time, right? And then eventually the Titans took that picture down. So it seems like what happened here was it was a mistake. That was a picture being taken by Donald Page and the photography team on the rookie arrival day earlier this weekend when George Fant also arrived for his workout. And it sounds like George Fant tried to walk into the facility in the wrong, just made a mistake and went to the wrong door and got his picture taken. And they just threw all those pictures up and forgot that George Fant is not one of the dudes on the team. So that's the confusion, but we have clarification. I believe Paul Kaharski asked somebody within the building for clarification after we all left. He is not signed by the team. He still is not signed by the team. He's not probably going to be signed by the team. Kind of says George Fant could walk into the press conference and Vrabel could still say nothing to see here. This is true. Dr. Lipschitz, I see that you're saying the volume's too low on the videos. We apologize for that. I tried to fix the volume before. It sounds like I didn't turn it up enough on these. It's difficult with the phone videos from the actual building and then getting them on here, getting the volume right. So thank you for the note. Next time we'll turn them up even more and hopefully you can hear better. For now, just lean in real close. We'll try to be real quiet for you so you can hear them. Next up, let's talk about what Mike Vrabel had to say on the pair of fellas on this team that got in trouble in the past couple weeks. Let's put it that way. You have NPF with this gambling suspension, 6 weeks out. You have Hassan Haskins with some serious legal domestic violence charges that are looming over his head. A very different, much more serious situation with him. We asked him about both, and I'm not going to play the clip because it's a kind of two non-answers. With the gambling policy, he just said, we're continuing to preach and teach the gambling policy and do as much in the education department as we can, make sure these guys understand what's going on. Didn't really add much to what's going on with the MPF situation or his, he didn't editorialize on his thoughts on the situation. And then with Hassan Haskins, he said practically nothing, just that he said, first of all, we're very sensitive to those kinds of situations, which he has to say for, just PR purposes. But then he said he wants to, and as we assumed he would, we want to allow for all the facts to come out, is what he said. And so he is going to remain on this team. It's probably going to be weird, a little bit awkward at the moment. Whether or not he stays on this roster for a long time is to be determined. I'd imagine if he is on the roster, his impact in terms of on-field play will be very minimal. He won't be put in situations to just be out there, just be in the public eye. It'd be minimalized as much as possible. They probably won't want us talking to him at the first practice tomorrow. I can almost guarantee you media, PR people will tell us he's one of the people we can't get as they run off the field. Maybe not. But if he's out there, they're probably going to tell us we can't speak to him. And so that situation is still kind of hanging up in the air. The next clip I want to play is Vrabel giving what he alluded to as his three kind of tenets for what he's trying to get across, the message he's preaching on day one of training camp. We were asking him about what he wants to accomplish the next 5 weeks or so. And here's what he had to say, the three things that Mike Vrabel wants to accomplish in camp. Here's the clip.
We talk about training camp as trying to accomplish three things. We're trying to build our foundation, of what our culture is and who we are and how we want to play. We want to try to make sure that we're developing a team, that there's a level of camaraderie and trust and accountability that we all have for each other. And the last one is we have to, most importantly, prepare to win. That's what we're all here for. So that was my message the other day. That'll be my message this afternoon. As we have to build a foundation to start over. If there was improvement in spring, great. We need to continue that, but it's building the foundation, developing a team, and then preparing to win. And then the players will obviously define their role as we work our way through training camp.
We asked him on the heels of that question, what's the plan for veterans? How are you going to approach who does and doesn't play? And this question really revolved around DeAndre Hopkins, who has whether fair or not, and he'll address that a little bit later, has a reputation for not liking to practice, not practicing a whole lot. We asked him what his plan was for the veterans and DeAndre in particular, and he gave kind of a broad strokes answer. But JT, let's play this next clip. Here is Mike Vrabel talking about how everybody has a plan every day.
You guys have heard this ad nauseum, but everybody has a plan every day, and everybody will be working in some capacity, right? Whether that's Derek or Jeff or KB, whoever that, DeAndre. And so I'm not ready just to say this is what the plan is. I think it's dependent on, what it looks like, the amount of work that he gets, and the amount of work that he needs, and the conditioning that he needs, and the relationship with the quarterback. But he's going to have a plan just like everybody else.
So it sounds like these guys are going to get the pretty typical veteran treatment in terms of who will and won't be playing or practicing rather. I'd imagine Hopkins maybe practices more than folks think at first when he is not dealing with his family things away from the facility. But there's a number of these players that are going to practice at different levels, and it's probably going to frustrate some fans, but that's just the nature of training camp, guys. Like, that's how it goes with these veterans. You get veteran treatment. I mean, guys like Ben Jones last year, not out there a whole lot, but he doesn't really need to be. With the DeAndre Hopkins, it's much more concerning what and how he is learning in the teaching rooms, in the position rooms, behind closed doors in the facility with the install and getting up to speed. Yes, there is an element of building a relationship with a chemistry with Ryan Tannehill and his fellow teammates on the field, but it's going to be a long August. Like, there's plenty of training camp. As long as he's on the field a decent amount and is not hurt, I think it won't be that big of a concern personally. We asked him about Harold Landry as well, who was importantly not put on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list to begin camp, like Dylan Radins and Caleb Farley were. By the way, we asked him about those two guys. He didn't have anything to say, just said they're on the PUP list. We'll talk about them when they're not on the PUP list. With Landry, not on the PUP list, we asked him what he expects to see from Landry in camp, gave an open-ended answer, but said, quote, "From what I've seen, looks like he's ready to go. May or may not be out there every day." So again, that kind of veteran treatment in terms of who is and isn't going to be out there, especially with a guy like Landry, who is both a veteran and coming off of rehabbing a significant injury, an injury that he sustained in this period last year. And with ACLs, I don't need to remind anybody, you often get secondary and tertiary injuries as a result of compensating. You pull a hammy in the opposite leg, you do some damage to your hip in the opposite leg because you're compensating for your knee, whether it is physical compensation or there's a mental element to this, JT. I mean, I'm sure everybody has dealt with an injury in terms of athletics at some point in their life where, the doctor said you're ready to go and you feel like you're ready to go, but you get out there and, you run that first wind sprint in your head. It's scary. You got to get over that hump of trusting your knee again, trusting your ankle again, trusting your broken bone again. And we've seen that with guys like Caleb Farley last year, who looked at times to be kind of a head case in terms of trusting that knee, turning and getting downfield and not letting no-name wide receivers blaze him down the field as a guy that is and should be one of the fastest guys on the roster. The next clip is an update from Mike Vrabel, and this is the last we'll have for Mike Vrabel on his quarterback room right now. And I think this was the most interesting clip for me because of what he says out of the gate about one Mr. Malik Willis. But here's what Mike Vrabel had to say when asked about his quarterback room. Let's play the clip.
Conscious of that, again, I thought Malik came out of the spring with glaring improvement. Will's learning what it goes into being an NFL quarterback, and then certainly the consistency that Ryan showed in the offseason and his willingness to pick up new terminology with the offense and some of the stuff that we were doing. So, again, feel good about where we're at. Can't have too many quarterbacks. Hopefully they're all good ones and that we have tough decisions. But it was fun just seeing the guys improve and then seeing where we go now starting tomorrow.
Let's work backwards on those comments, because, again, the first one is the most fascinating to me. At the end there, he says, and this is his mentality, and it's not hard to trust him on this, to believe him on this, because clearly, based on his actions, this is how Mike Vrabel feels in terms of his philosophy at the quarterback position. There is no such thing as too many quarterbacks, and I hope that they're all good and give us tough decisions. Like that is what he wants, and that's why they now have 3 promising to very talented starting caliber quarterbacks on this roster, and it's getting a bit crowded in that room. On Tannehill, he mentions the consistency and willingness to learn new terminology for a veteran. That's kind of something that I think can go under the radar. How often do you in your line of work, whoever you are listening to this, when you know how to do something and there's a way that you've done something for years, and then you've got a new boss or a new management or, corporate is sending new guidelines, and it's like, you have to do it this way now. That's a massive pain in the butt, man. Like, it's no fun. No one likes to do that. So to have to learn a whole new language, a whole new terminology for a quarterback who's been in the league for a decade and has known how to do things one way and isn't changing teams. Like, there's not even the excuse like, well, I have to learn a new language because it's a new team. Same team, boss, but you got to learn a whole new offense. That can't be super fun. And so for him to be willing to do that is obviously a positive in his coach's minds. With Will Levis, he says the obvious. He has been learning and is learning how to be an NFL quarterback. And then with Malik Willis, JT, and I want to talk about this for just a second. Immediately, of the 3 quarterbacks, he starts with Malik and says, came in the spring, glaring improvement. Immediately obvious to him. Now, whether that is, wow, it was shocking how this guy doesn't suck anymore, or it was a positive in the sense that, hey, this guy actually has some juice, might actually have some promise. Look at this year 1 to year 2 improvement. I found that pretty fascinating, and I think it goes along with what, dare I say, we were the first show to ever consider this, because we never jumped off the train in the first place. The train of Malik has promise. There's a chance. He always needed time. Give it a second. Even last year at the end of the season when he's getting benched for Josh Dobbs, people saying Malik's a bust. It's already over. He's washed up. It never was going to work. Just cut ties and move on. We talked to his quarterback coach and Sean McAvoy, friend of the show. We talked about our initial draft evaluations of him back before the Titans ever took him. This is a guy that, needs time, is a massive project, needs at least a year, maybe 2 to ever reach that potential. So we said, let's not freak out yet. There's a chance that he makes this summer really, really interesting. And here we are. Mike Vrabel apparently found his spring very interesting. And I kind of think that he's going to make this August very, very interesting in that quarterback room, JT, don't you think?
I mean, I totally agree. I think it was never always cut and dry for Will Levis to be the backup here in going into training camp. I think you have to give Malik Willis the benefit of the doubt, being 1 whole year into the system here. Especially, I mean, we talked with, like you said, with his quarterback coach, who Malik has put the work in all offseason. So it shouldn't really be a surprise that he made these improvements.
Yeah, and we've been hearing about that behind the scenes from his quarterback coach back in February. Like, hey, I'm working with Malik every day, all the time. We're grinding. Like, he's going to make that push to prove everybody wrong. Kenneth says here, by the way, that Vrabel is absolutely right. You can't have too many quarterbacks. Imagine if the Eagles hadn't taken Jalen Hurts and were stuck with Carson Wentz, or the Chiefs had just stuck with Alex Smith, who was consistently getting them to the playoffs when they went and they drafted Patrick Mahomes. A great point. Let's move on to what DeAndre Hopkins had to say, JT. And the first question for him was also obvious. DeAndre, why'd you pick Tennessee? Like, what's the deal with, not to say you shouldn't have by any means, but many considered a guy, a star player for the past decade in the NFL, still has some juice left, hasn't played on a good team in a long time. maybe he would, like to go to a contender. And then many nationally don't consider the Titans to be a contender in the slightest. In fact, the only thing that they consider them to be contending for is potentially a top 5 draft pick next year. So why Tennessee? And he gave a number of answers to this question, for which we have a couple of clips. The first was, he said that Ryan and Mike had put together a competitive roster in his eyes. And so we asked, what made you think or makes you think this roster is competitive or can be competitive? And the answer he gave, it caught me off guard in the moment. Like, I did not think that this was going to be his answer in the slightest. I wouldn't have named it as my top 3 answer, but he said it was Josh Dobbs. Like, hold on, what? Huh? Excuse me? And he said, yeah, I'm watching that game at home last year, Titans Jaguars, prime time, I believe on a Saturday night, I believe. And win or get in, the Titans are having to play Josh Dobbs off the street and against a Jaguars team that was trending up pretty significantly with a quarterback who's certainly on the rise. And they were a 1 or 2 calls away from winning that game. They were in the game until the very end, and then they lost on a controversial fumble call. Like, he said he saw that game and thought this team, even when they have a million injuries and are having to play a quarterback in off the street, is still competitive as all get out. And they're just a piece or 2 away. His words, not mine. And so that's something that I think should inspire confidence in a lot of Titans fans, that he gave not just a positive answer. And he could have said, just I think this team's a couple pieces away. I think that we can really compete. I think people are sleeping on us. That there's an element of hollowness to that, right? Like, of course you're going to say that. You just signed here. You want to win. You're a little biased. You play for the team now. Like, you're going to pump yourself up and think positively. But he gave a really thoughtful, intelligent, informed, and logically plausible answer to the question that I think, for at least intelligent fans, should be really exciting, because if he's able to, 10 seconds into being a Tennessee Titan, recognize that, you'd imagine that the coaching staff is of the same mind, and you'd imagine that the player personnel are of the same mind as well. And so this team, as we have said since the beginning of the offseason, JT, on this show, and until guys like Kevin Byard and Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill and Jeffrey Simmons, the 4 guys they had in the Oilers reveal video, by the way, are all gone. All guys that they were rumored to be trading at some point in the past couple months. Until they're gone, this is not a rebuild, man. It's not. This team's still trying to compete. Then they add DeAndre Hopkins to that mix of stars, and yeah, they're trying to compete. In terms of why he chose Tennessee for other reasons, he also mentioned his positive relationship with Tim Kelly, the Titans offensive coordinator, and Charles London. Felt like he could pick up where he left off with both of those guys in Houston back in 2019, where in that season, Tim Kelly was calling some of the plays and overseeing a number of the offensive game planning bits and pieces there. He also said that on his visit to Tennessee, initially, the original visit, a couple of over a month ago now, I believe, a couple weeks ago, he said that Ryan Tannehill and his wife, Lauren, came to meet him, to see him when he was here in Tennessee, that he hit it off with Ryan right away. We asked him about his chemistry with Ryan. He said that he feels like they hit it off and they're going to be really good friends. And that when Ryan and his wife came to visit him on his visit with the team, that he really appreciated that. And that meant a lot to him. That I think goes to the point of, remember early on with Hopkins, when he was asked on another show what his criteria for a new team was, he wanted a quarterback that loves ball, and a quarterback in the middle of summer with his wife willing to stop whatever they're doing and come visit a potential free agent and meet with him and talk with him and be earnest with him. That, I think, demonstrates a quarterback that this guy's about ball. Like, he's in it. He's 100% all in. He also said, I have to mention, we got a whoop dumbass Jared Stillman question here real quick. Just have to mention, he asked Hopkins easily the dumbest question of the press conference. What is your level of belief in Ryan Tannehill? And Hopkins was like, what are you, what? And he repeated the question. What is your level of confidence in Ryan Tannehill? And Hopkins says, well, 1 out of 10. I think it's a 10. And it just gives him this look and offers nothing more. Thanks, Jared. He also mentioned being somewhere that he felt comfortable. And this is a clip that I do want to play for you, JT. Let's play the clip where DeAndre goes into length about why he found comfort in a home here in Tennessee.
Someone in my situation going to year 11, wanting to be somewhere around people that I'm comfortable with. Vrabel now, we've always kept communication over the years. When I first got to Arizona, he was one of the first coaches to congratulate me, and was one of the first coaches to criticize a bad game that I had as well. It wasn't my coach, and that's what I respect about Vrabel.
It's funny that he mentioned Vrabel was one of the first guys to compliment him with the Cardinals and also be, constructive with his criticism when he was with Arizona. And we asked him, what did he say? And he said that he texted him after one of his first games, asking him why he didn't catch a ball that he should have caught. And we asked him if he appreciated that at the time. He said, yeah, I appreciated it immediately. Clearly this guy cares about me. He's invested in me, and he's willing to hold me to the standard that I hold myself to. We then asked Hopkins why his game can remain so sharp as he continues to age. And JT, this is another clip that we have. Here was DeAndre's response to that question.
My IQ, the way I play the game, the pace I play the game, obviously. The way I started last season as well. My first couple games in Arizona.
And so that's something that I think is pretty obvious. We've talked about on the show. Like, he's not a speed, physicality, high point, catch point receiver. That's not his game. Never has been his game. Even when he came out of Clemson as a rookie, as a much younger, much more spry player, he's always been a route craft, body control player. He doesn't necessarily need separation to win, to make a reception. He constantly makes his quarterbacks look better, look good by catching balls that should be incompletions or interceptions because he's got such fantastic body control and route craft ability. He also mentioned that he started doing some specific new training last year in his efforts to continue to combat father time. And so that's something that's pretty positive. We then asked him about playing a teacher-player role, being that veteran mentor out there on the field, as well as being a contributing player to the team. And I found this clip interesting, JT. Clip 3, he mentions how he's going to approach it as a challenge, really, as the veteran in the room, to be the player teacher for the Tennessee Titans offense.
As a challenge to help those guys, obviously, I had someone like Andre Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, kind of showed me the way. So I approach it as a challenge to help those guys get to where they want to get to, and obviously it's about the team. So, whatever I can do to help those guys on and off the field, that's what I'll do.
So Hopkins there mentions former Titans legend Andre Johnson and then Larry Fitzgerald as two veterans that he has experience with in the past, who kind of played that role that he is now looking to play with guys like Treylon Burks and Kyle Phillips. He mentioned Burks, saying that he was is a great player and is looking forward to playing with him and helping him develop along the way. Dr. Lipschitz says, I don't think D-Hop even knew the plays in Houston and Arizona. He's just great at finding soft spots and doesn't drop anything. That's a good point. Also asking if anybody asked D-Hop if he knows Coach Kelly as Pretty Boy Kelly. No, we didn't ask that question yet. I'm sure it will come up. We talked to Tim Kelly tomorrow morning at 8:30, I believe, 8:45, something like that. So it's going to come up tomorrow morning. Don't worry about that. Pretty Boy Kelly will be in the house and on Twitter in our in the media's mentions. We then asked him about what guys he has been with in the past, because he's not now a veteran. Like, he's a 10-year player. He's going into year 11. He's been a veteran for a while now. Has he kind of taken on this teacher-player role with other players? And he mentioned a guy like Will Fuller, who he felt like he was not taking credit for Will Fuller's success by any means, but as a guy that he felt like he kind of took under his wing, and a similar situation in Arizona with a number of those young guys like I don't know, Andy Isabella and Christian Kirk and guys like that he kind of took under his wing. He plans to do the same with the guys here in Tennessee, which is a positive thing, that he's looking to fill that role and is not averse to the competition or to helping better his teammates. We asked him about Tim, his offensive coordinator, good typo on my part, using him more in the slot in Houston, and if he expects to be used similarly here in Tennessee, like we were mentioning earlier. This is another clip that let's play, JT, but he came with the stats talking about his success as a slot player back in 2019 in Houston.
From what I remember, I think when I was in the slot, you can go back and fact check me, but I might have been, like top 5 productive slot receiver at the time. That was my first year being in the slot. So obviously Tim knew how to call plays, and it worked. We were very productive. We were a couple games away from getting to where we wanted to get to. So I think that helps a lot, not just having me outside where teams can kind of double me or just take me out the game in one position, but move me around, not just don't just help myself with offense as well.
Yeah, so not to beat that horse any further, but I do expect him to be used in the slot more than some are expecting. I think his primary role will be as that flanker opposite Treylon Burks, but expect them to move him around more than maybe in the past. The last couple things from his availability that I want to share. We asked him about the hating practice narrative, and I won't play the clip, but he said that he felt like that was overblown. A player of his caliber in terms of the stats he's put up the past couple seasons, he said, I don't know how many players can do what I've done without practicing. Those numbers seem like they require practice, which is a pretty good point. He also said that he feels like the whole DeAndre hates to practice narrative got spun up around the time that he was in Houston, about to leave Houston. And he said, I think it started in Houston when they, he laughs and we all laugh. And it's pretty obvious when there was kind of a psyop campaign by the Bill O'Brien Gestapo. We're getting this guy out of here. We got to make him look like the bad guy. When in fact, I don't think that he was the bad guy. Last clip here from DeAndre. We had to ask him about what he felt like the value of the running back position was in the NFL from a professional, long-time NFL wide receiver. How do you feel the running back impacts the offense's ability in general? What does it mean to have a great running back? And how do you feel about the ongoing debate and discussion around whether or not running backs are treated fairly?
Without a great running back, or without a good running back, I shall say, the pass game is very hard to establish. Play a lot of football. You got to establish run first. I think those guys are very important to the game of football. And obviously, I see what's going on. Not a fan of it. But, that's out of my decision. The only thing I can go out there and do is my job. But having a good running back on the team definitely helps win games.
And he believes that because he went on to talk about how Derrick Henry is a personal friend of his, has been for a couple years, and he's a big part of the reason Derrick Henry is why DeAndre is here in Nashville in the first place. Clearly, there was some lobbying going on, and clearly DeAndre does value a great running back's ability to make his job as a receiver easier, establishing the run, making a team fear the run, opening things up for him on the backside and allowing them to be force multipliers for each other. All right, last thing before we get out of here, JT, some camp notes. We asked Mike Vrabel today about what his plan was for the team in terms of days on and days off. The situation where we were trying to boil down here is, when can we see them in full pads? Like, when are we going to see some live bullets flying? And so the Titans camp practices begin tomorrow, the day that this show publishes on podcast. So on Wednesday of this week, they will begin their first practice, technically day 2 of camp. Vrabel has them working on 2 days on, 1 day off, with every third day essentially being like a walk through, jog through for installation, but not live reps. That's how he's spacing out his days on and days off. And so that schedule and the restrictions of the collective bargaining agreement mean that there can be no live contact with the Titans until, at the earliest, Monday. So look for Monday's practice, which I will be in attendance for, to be the first padded physical contact, full live speed practice for the Titans. All right. Some news here that I see JT so diligently has added mid-show. That
just came up, both of these.
Hot off the presses, yep. JT. You know what's going on here. So I'm throw it over to you. Talk me through some of this news.
Yeah, so we had just 2 stories in the past hour kind of come out today.
Okay.
One having to do with the Titans, and then one kind of having to do with the NFL as a whole. We'll do the Titans one first real quick. It was reported by Aaron Wilson at @AaronWilson_NFL on Twitter that the Titans worked out former Texans and Patriots safety AJ Moore today. Kind of pressing, as we talked about on our show on Monday, about some questions that we had going into Titans training camp, the safety position was a little scarce behind those top guys. Of course, Elijah Molden has been working out as a safety this offseason. So interesting to see them kind of working out some guys, maybe bringing in some possible depth in the secondary.
Yeah, AJ Moore, he's going to be 28 this year. I had to pull up the stats because I'm like, wait, this guy played for the Titans briefly last year, didn't he? Yeah, he did. So if this name is familiar to you, it's funny that he says former Texans and Patriots defensive back. Technically true, but he did spend one game last year playing with the Titans. He played in 16 games in 2018 and 19, although no starts, started 5 games and played in 11 in 2020 with the Texans, and then played in 12 more games with no starts in 2021. So certainly a depth player, but JT, this team needs depth at the safety position. They've got their starters. They need some depth. If they can add some depth players that are quality and a guy like AJ Moore potentially, and again, I don't know if AJ Moore really rises to the level of moving the needle, or maybe he even is a guy that you're like, please God, he's a body. Yes. But is it an active detriment to ever have him out on the field? I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, and then one more piece of news here, a big bombshell that just came out about 5 to 10 minutes ago. Per Adam Schefter, the next quarterback domino falls. Chargers and Justin Herbert reached agreement today on a landmark 5-year, $262.5 million extension that ties him to the franchise through the 2029 season. The deal gets done before Chargers' first training camp practice on Wednesday tomorrow. Some other things about this real quick. Justin Herbert is now the highest paid quarterback in NFL history in terms of new money average annual value at $52.5 million per season. He becomes the third quarterback just this offseason, just like Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson, to become the highest paid quarterback ever.
Got to keep resetting that market, baby. My initial reaction to this is I think this is a very good deal for the Chargers and for Herbert. Obviously, Kenneth, running backs punching air seeing Herbert's money. Maybe he can buy dinner forever and always. This seems like a good deal for both sides. Obviously, Herbert gets to set that market, set the record for the next, 13, 14 seconds. And he also gets to have some, 5 years is a long contract through 2029, but it's not like a Mahomes 10-year, which I don't blame him for. With Mahomes, I think tying yourself to an organization like the Chiefs, an established, adult, well-run, competent organization with competent leadership in both the front office and in the coaching offices. Chargers historically aren't that. They're not always the most competent organization. They're regularly the most snake-bitten organization. They are regularly talked about as one of the cheapest organizations, and they've had their ups and downs in terms of competency over the past 20 years or so. And so I think giving them some security as a franchise to try to establish that culture over the next 5 years, but also giving Herbert the option that, if things are still a disaster and I go to one playoff game in the next 3 years or whatever it may be, I've not tied myself in perpetuity to this team, and this team gets their 5-year. It's more than I think a standard 4-year contract, obviously, but 5 is not. I don't know, for a guy like Herbert, I would have expected a big, maybe more like a. Let's see, what did Josh Allen? He did a 6-year, I believe. So like Josh Allen did 6. I'd imagine Joe Burrow is probably going to do in that 6 to 7 to 8 range. Mahomes obviously did the landmark 10-year $1 billion deal, and so, or $500 million deal. So yeah, I'd say that's probably the lowest of the very, very high-end quarterback contracts in terms of years allocated that you'll ever see. And I think it's ultimately a good deal for both sides.
Yeah, and that just brings up the question. We saw Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, now Justin Herbert. Joe Burrow time. And to your point there, I feel like you bring in question a Bengals organization who also has been on the cheap side.
Little cheap. Not the most cash-rich organization in the league.
And now have also Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase to pay. And interesting to see. But I will say the Bengals have always taken great care in their quarterback, whether it's been Carson Palmer or Andy Dalton or now Joe Burrow. It's always been the position that they take care of at least the most.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Just want to make sure we didn't miss any questions here. Oh, I forget at the very beginning. I promised I'd get to it. See, I'm not forgetting, Dr. Lipschitz. You asked earlier about why no one is talking about the tight end battle. It says, what's our starting inline tight end? Wiley, Rader, Mack, Wesco. Good question. Something that I think we didn't address today simply because we're gonna get visual evidence of words are nothing. Talk is cheap, right? Let's go see it on the field. What are they actually doing? We're going to see that the next couple of days at practice. So make sure to join us. Perfect segue when we go live again with the Hot Read podcast, another live taping on Thursday evening around the same time, 4 or 5 o'clock. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Hot Read Pod for updates for scheduling and programming announcements of that sort, and join the 500 others that have followed us on Twitter. Shout out to us for 500 followers on Twitter. That rocks. Let's get to 1,000. Would much appreciate that. Thank you so much earnestly to all of you that follow us and make what we do possible. Quick announcement. If you missed at the top, we are in fact partnered with Zen Sportsbook this year, the newest sportsbook in the state of Tennessee. And if you use our code when you sign up, HOTPOD, HOTPOD, when you sign up, there's going to be a box for a referral code. You're going to know it when you see it. Don't miss it. HOTPOD, HOTPOD. What does that
Use
get?
it. Yeah, use it tonight on the Mets.
Use it tonight on the Mets, baby,
There
or
you go.
betting against the Mets, or whatever you want to do. Go do that. And when you sign up using our code HOTPOD, that gets you unlimited 5% cash back welcome bonus when you sign up with our code HOTPOD. 5% cash back for the first 15 days on all of your betting volume, win or lose. So if you bet $100 in the next 15 days, win or lose those bets, you're going to get $5 back in your pocket. $1,000, you're going to get $50 back in your pocket. It's like an interest on an investment. You're getting that money back, win or lose. And after that first 15 days, it's 3% cash back bonus in your pocket on all of your betting volume. So none of this funny money, free bets, bet site credit, blah, blah, blah. Sign up and get it. We're going to match your, no, it is cash in your pocket forever when you use our code HOTPOD, HOTPOD. So check them out, Zen Sportsbook here in the state of Tennessee. All right, that's it for us today. Appreciate those of you who tuned in live with us. Make sure to come back. We'll be live Thursday evening around the 4 or 5 o'clock hour as you're driving home or as you're getting ready for dinner, talking about the Titans' first training camp practice, which is tomorrow morning. I will be there in attendance and taking plenty of notes for us to discuss on Thursday for Friday's show. Until then, for producer JT, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. This has been the Hot Read Podcast. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you on Friday.